Hello everyone, this is AndresRestart, and today we are doing our trailer analysis for the first look at the gameplay of Pokémon Legends ZA. A year ago we got our first teaser of the game, but no actual gameplay. Now we have our first proper look at the game, and there is a lot to discuss here, so that's what we're getting into. But before going forward, let me point out that I am aiming to reach 50,000 subscribers by the time the Switch 2 launches. So if you find yourself enjoying my content, I would appreciate it if you could subscribe and hit that notification bell. So right here, in the opening moments, I'll just tell you exactly what I thought when I saw this opening little entrance here. Is a terminal. Okay, nothing too crazy about this, but the visual style is kind of simplistic. It is very similar to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet. That is exactly what I thought in the very first second or two of seeing this. And yeah, at first you might be a little disappointed. We will look at some other visual elements of this trailer, but I do want to point out this comparison shot presented by Arrow on Twitter. And as we can see, Legends ZA, yes, has a similar style to Scarlet and Violet, but it does compare quite favorably to Scarlet and Violet. It does appear to be looking better, sharper, more well put together, and something else that people have noticed is that the frame rate drops aren't really as obvious or pronounced as they were with prior reveals for Pokemon games. So there are good things to take away, even though at first glance this game doesn't look that visually interesting. And then we get a look at our characters, and yeah, I would say the characters look good. They look pretty much like Scarlet and Violet level. It's really the environments where I kind of see them like, okay, they look kind of like basically cities from the Scarlet and Violet. That's pretty much how they look, perhaps a little bit better, a little bit sharper, a little bit more detailed, but that's kind of along the lines of what we're looking at here. Now we see that there are definitely different characters. You have your painter, you have your construction worker, the typical kind of class like style of NPCs and trainers, that's all there. There's a little Meowstic sign. Something I didn't point out, but here we see the Mega Evolution ring that's there. That part's pretty obvious. Looking through, it appears that we have our first look at a Pokemon Center, and I'll point it out a few other times throughout this trailer here, but considering that this is modern day, it looks like modern day, and we'll speak more on that in a moment as well, it seems like what we're going to see in terms of our options to heal our Pokemon would just be, well, Pokemon Centers. And so that's probably what this is, a typical sort of red banner for a Pokemon Center. There you go. Now, we do get like a little bit of a nice shot of the city here a few times, and to me, what seems to be sort of the case is that this is going to be an entire open world city you can just explore freely. It's one big map that you can explore, unlike Legends Arceus, where it was segmented with nice, cool, big areas. This is going to be one entire area you explore, very similar to Pokemon Scarlet and Violet, although I would assume this is smaller than Scarlet and Violet overall, but it's also probably a lot more denser with a variety of things to do. And so scrolling through here, we see that there's another look at the Pokemon Center. They're not really showing too much of the inside, but we can see like a Pokeball hologram. This is, yeah, it's probably a Pokemon Center. You see a runner here, so there's characters doing different things in this town area. Yeah. There she is just running around. I will note that we can see some obvious aliasing here. And this looks like a mall area. You can see like a clothes shop there. There's multiple clothing shops. Actually, they all look like clothing shops. So this looks like kind of like your typical sort of shopping mall. But I wonder if maybe where you get out of the terminal from the beginning of the trailer, if this opens up into this mall area, because oftentimes this kinds of things are connected in real life. Could it be like that in this game? We'll see. Something else I'd like to point out, given that we have all these clothing shops, is that likely we're going to be able to wear a lot of different clothes, customize how we look, and it makes more sense when you also consider that this is Lumio City, a town in the Kalos region from Pokemon X and Y, where this trend of wearing different clothes and customizing your character began. Here we get our first look at the wild areas. These are going to be scattered all throughout the map, so you can still interact with wild Pokemon like you would in Legends Arceus. We get a nice look at the water with these Pokemon in there. I actually like the look of this. It looks pretty good. The water part. The other parts are kind of simple, but, you know, it's fine. Continuing on. Some simple animations there. Nothing too amazing, but it's nice to see some variety, right? So we got some sand areas. She's kneeling down to pick the starters, and here we have a good look at our starters, and there's a few interesting takeaways I have from this. One, it's 2 Generation 2 starters, Totodile and Chikorita, and Tepig from Generation 5. And that's just kind of funny, but something else is we get a nice close-up look of the Pokemon here. What you'll perhaps notice is that, I mean, they look fine, right? But unlike Scarlet and Violet that had all these Pokemon with kind of like a subtle but still evident textured look to them, we don't see any sort of fur or scales on these Pokemon here as we get a nice up-close look of them. So it may be the case that in Legends ZA, they are dialing back the level of detail on the Pokemon models. But something I want to speak on here. We've already seen that this game has some simple textures, not too much really going on that's too crazy. The goal for this game may be to make sure that it runs well. After the issues with Scarlet and Violet, Game Freak probably isn't going too ambitious with the visuals here. They are doing what they can while ensuring the game runs well. And I think that should be a priority over everything else. So we're going to see some simple textures, some blurry textures, not a lot of advanced detail in some places. And while the game may not go down as one of the best looking Switch games, that part is very much clear. If the game looks fine and it runs well and is fun, I think that is what's most important. However, there are still some nice things I have noticed about the attention to detail with the animations and some of the visuals that I'll point out as we progress in this trailer. But something else I'd like to highlight is that this game is coming out late 2025. We expect the Switch 2 to come out fairly soon. The Switch 2 will likely be out by the time this game is available. And we have heard from the Terra leaks that there is actually a version of some kind of Legends EA for Switch 2. Now, we don't know if they've actually been working on it or if they just considered it and just canned the idea. So there's no confirmation if there will be a Switch 2 version that will be made available to the public. But it is clear, looking throughout this trailer, looking throughout the footage, that they can very easily have a version of this game that has sharper, more cleaner textures, perhaps is using the more detailed versions of these Pokemon models with the scaly or furry looks like we saw in Scarlet and Violet, perhaps even more obviously, and running at a higher resolution. You do those simple things, the game will look a lot cleaner by a noticeable degree, and that could be the Switch 2 version. Am I saying it's going to look like a proper next generation game? No, I don't think many people would say that this Pokemon game looks like a proper current generation game. But does it look fine enough? Is it going to be an experience that we can enjoy? I think the more simple approach here is them aiming for a more seamless, solid frame rate, and so far that seems to be the case. We see our trainer running along Tepig here. This part I actually think is an extremely interesting scene because our main character is having some cake. Is that a cheesecake? Maybe. And a hot drink. We can see some steam kind of moving away from the cup there. But what I find extra interesting is that Totodile is sitting with us. But where's Totodile's food? Does Totodile just join us to eat but watches us eat without giving him any food? I don't think that's fair. I think Totodile deserves to have his own meal. I mean, look at that jaw. It clearly can fit a lot in there. So maybe we'll just give the cake to him. The point is, I think it's neat that you can actually sit down, eat, see the food, which we don't always see in all the different Pokemon games, so there is a little bit of extra detail there, and your Pokemon join you, which is a nice touch. Continuing on with the trailer, we see here that we are crouching down with Chikorita looking at something, so like Legends Arceus, the ability to crouch seems to be returning. And as we continue, we see that there is another Pokemon here that we were following, And what I love about this is that the eyes turned towards us. So that is a nice touch there as well, that there is a connection of eyes. They're like, whoa, what is behind me? And they slowly turn their head and their eyes aim in that direction. That's cool. I really appreciate that. And so here we see his attention is fully turned to us, and we're going into battle. And it's functioning exactly like it worked in Legends Arceus so far. Now, something else interesting about this scene, though, is that we can see the wild area. It doesn't appear to be that large. It's pretty small. It looks like we can see kind of like the walls here. But there are multiple trainers we can see off into the distance. So it's almost like a mini route, kind of like prior games. And we might be able to just battle them. Like this one's standing here to the side as there's like a path to walk through, very similar to prior older Pokemon games. And so it might be the case that you could lock eyes and engage in battle. I would prefer that. Something that I missed in Legends Arceus were trainer battles. Like, yes, there were some, but they were few and far between. So I have an optimism looking at scenes like this where there are multiple trainers, it appears, in a wild area that you're just going to straight up be able to battle them. Now, this part is a little bit contentious for people. We see that as opposed to using a Pokemon to climb up to the top of the building, there's a teleporter of some kind, some sort of escalation teleportation, which, all right, I agree that that's a little, it's just kind of okay. I agree with that. But the fact that we can even get on the buildings, I think, is worth noting, because if there is not ride Pokemon, then how else would you do it, right? You wouldn't be able to normally if there isn't a special Pokemon to let you get on buildings like this. Now, with Scarlet and Violet, you could ride around with Koraidon and Miraidon and get pretty much everywhere. So that's now the standard. And so they probably wanted to give us a way to do that in this game. And so you will be able to get on buildings with these mechanisms here. However, there is a little bit more to it, right? Even though there aren't ride Pokemon that allow you to do a whole bunch of crazy things, there is some athleticism we see here. Like this ledge that he's running to here, we're gonna jump on the next frame or the next scene, and it's taller than him, and yet he can climb over it, right? So there is some level of acrobatic ability here, which I do appreciate, and it actually goes another step here. So as he starts running off, right, he does a little leap off this side here, it looks like. And I mean, it's clearly there's a little bit of a wonky animation there, but in motion it might not really look that bad. And as he's falling down, a Rotom phone comes out to lift him up and propel him towards the next building. And I actually think this is a pretty cool thing. Like, I think we're underestimating this. Like, we're not Spider-Man, right? But we can kind of like run and dance around buildings like this and jump from one building to the next as a trainer, not a Pokemon. So I think that's cool. I think points should be awarded here. That looks pretty fun. Now we see a character interaction here. This is the main character rival that's established just by watching a trailer. There's nothing really too groundbreaking there, but we see another trainer battle, which I appreciate. And this is something that's really awesome. So you can steer your Pokemon to avoid attacks. This has never happened before in a Pokemon game where you can literally get your Pokemon to dodge. We've always wanted to tell our Pokemon to dodge attacks, and in this game, dodging is part of the game. You can do that, and that is awesome. And there's actually several interesting other details I want to point out here. So we see the trainer is, issuing a gesture to do the Flame Wheel attack. Tepig is doing the Flame Wheel attack. And then, yes, Totodile follows us to avoid the attack, which is great. But notice this. As Totodile is running away, Totodile has his head turned, and he is aware of Tepig. The eyes are locking here. Tepig, even though he's got the Flame Wheel going on, his eyes are also looking towards Totodile. So in battle, the Pokemon are going to have their heads turning towards each other, their eyes locking, and that is something that makes so much sense. It's going to help with the immersion here. Very nice attention to detail. Something else I think is worth noting. While yes, the overall visuals of this game aren't extremely impressive, I think we should give props where props are deserved. And it is nice to see that when the flame wheel really gets into action, we see the light of the fire illuminates the entire area with that orange glow, and it progresses as the flame wheel gets more intense, right? So first, there's going to be like a big spark here. We see the sparks come out. We see a little bit of that glow, but then it gets a little bit more pronounced as the flame wheel gets bigger and it moves towards Totodile. So that's a nice touch. There are some decent visual effects in this game. And then Totodile goes for his own water gun, and Tepig tries to dodge, does not, fails. You see more attacks here. The roll is back, confirmed. It's not just crouching, there's also rolling. So the athleticism with this trainer appears to be even greater than the trainer in Legends Arceus. And here we get a nice close-up look of Lucario from just one side, and this seems to be some extra confirmation that the textures of the fur and stuff just aren't in this game. But maybe the Switch 2 version will have it. Fingers crossed, but that's a lot of ifs, so we'll see. Alright, we get a look at them. We've already seen the Z-Ring before. Yes, Mega Evolutions are in this game, and we're going to talk a little bit more about them later as we progress throughout the footage. But yeah, Mega Evolutions are there. We see the different Pokemon. It appears it's not just the initial Mega Evolutions from X and Y, but also the ones we got in Omega Ruby Alpha Sapphire. So all the Mega Evolutions appear to be coming back, and I assume there will be some new ones as well. Like for example, the starters, which there's actually something I noticed about that we'll get into a little bit later. There's a trainer. Here we get to see some of these characters. This is something neat here is that this is the same symbol from Team Galactic, right, from Legends Arceus, so it seems like the team has somehow stayed together over the years and has changed, but they are still together, and clearly they're going to be a big part of the story. There we see AZ, or Oz. I'm not sure how people like to say it. Do we say AZ or Oz? I'm not sure, but Fluette is here. And so if there was any sort of confusion on the timeline of this game, it's very clearly taking place after Pokemon X and Y, because at the end of Pokemon X and Y, these two characters are reunited. And so here they are together running a hotel in Lumio City. So I think it's pretty fair to say this takes place after X and Y. Clearly modern day. We've already seen the Pokemon centers. So yeah, that's what's going on here. And then at the end of the trailer, we see Zygarde 10% form. We already knew that this would be the case because obviously Legends ZA have the scales, so are the cells. So that's there. His butt lights up, which I think is hilarious, but there you go. That is the first trailer for Legends ZA, but they do show us a little bit more. So we get another look at the city here, the open world city, and we see a different time of day. So I'm kind of assuming it's going to be a dynamic day-night cycle as it worked in Scarlet and Violet. So yeah, I mean, what's interesting about this game is it's from a technology perspective, they appear to be following Scarlet and Violet more so than Legends Arceus, but I mean, I guess you could argue it's more like a combination. And we do see a lot of interactions with Pokemon and trainers outside of wild areas, right? So what I think is worth noting, oh, by the way, in case there was any room for doubt that this is a Pokemon Center, literally Pokemon Center, we can see the nurse there, we can see where we put in our Pokeballs, Pokemon Center. And that looks like a letter there, though, by the way. So there might be a little bit of a communication system, either with other characters, probably with other characters in the game, and maybe you get items and stuff like that. And actually, there is a guy standing here right next to the Pokemon Center. Reminds me of characters. We've seen characters like this next to other Pokemon Centers from prior Pokemon games. Not the Legends games, right? Well, there's only been one in Legends Arceus, but like Scarlet and Violet, Sword and Shield. And typically, depending on how many Pokemon you've caught, you can get awards or rewards from these dudes here. So there may be something going on with that. That's what I would kind of expect there. And here we see a wild area, right? And so the point I want to get to with this is that the wild areas clearly are not the majority of the map. They are a minority of the map. They don't take up everything. They're a small fraction. And there may be enough so there's still a decent amount to go about exploring. Maybe there's an underground, there's different things there. But I think what is interesting about this is that the focus is going to be more so on exploring the city and finding out what's going on there, talking to the characters. There's probably going to be some sort of mystery going on. And given how big this map is for being one entirely loaded in section in comparison to Legends Arceus, there's probably gonna be a lot more focus on side quests and character interaction, which is gonna be a nice fresh breath of air compared to Scarlet and Violet, which had a very minimal amount of that. And hopefully, with these extra character interactions, there's also a lot more trainer battles. Now, here they're talking about how Lumiose is undergoing this high-tech urban redevelopment plan. And so as you see here, there's construction going on. If I progress a little bit, you're going to see a hologram. So while it is modern day, they're progressing towards the future, using a lot of advanced technology, trying to create a greater level of harmony between trainers and Pokemon, which is interesting considering Legends Arceus, where it was about the beginning of that connection between people and Pokemon. And so in Legends ZA, it seems to be more so about going beyond the already established connection. And so how is that going to be conveyed? Is it just about having Pokemon more closely around people in a city, or is there more to it than that? That remains to be seen. Bagana and Larvitar there, Aegislash, Eevee rolling around while these two people are having a conversation. Still no food though, although she's just having a drink, she's having nothing, so, you know, maybe it's fair this time. But Totodile, that was a massive injustice. Whole bunch of Pokemon here and people just kind of chilling in the environment. Urbane and Tawny, these characters, if you choose the female, I assume you get Urbane. If you choose the male, you get Tawny. And that's just what it is. And you're going to be interacting with them throughout the story, right? That part's established. Quasargico Inc. This is the big building where we're going to see these characters, Vinny and Jet from Team Galactic. I don't know if they call themselves Team Galactic now, but they do have that same symbol. By the way, I just want to point out that Oz is huge. Like he's 9 feet tall. It's crazy. It's crazy what that he can that he's just that big. He's also thousands of years old. Now, what I want to get to, we already kind of talked about the wild areas, right? But as you see here, we got to look at the UI. You can see a mini-map. That's nothing too crazy. But we can see where our Pokemon are going to be shown, and we'll be able to readily pick from them there. So it's different from Legends Arceus. Looks like a little bit easier to use and navigate, actually. And in case there was any debate, yeah, Pokeballs are back. We're not using the old Pokeball things that we would make in Arceus. It's just typical modern-day Pokeballs. Now it also assumed we'd have the other newer modern-day balls as well. And the system seems to work pretty much exactly the way it worked in Legends Arceus in terms of catching and moving around. But as we talked about earlier, you can steer your Pokemon, you can dodge attacks, but also battles are happening in real time now. There's no turn system, there's no strong, agile mechanic, it's all in real time. And what you'll notice here is that Chikorita uses the move Leafage, right? And so that was the Leafage attack, it just happened, but you'll see there's a cooldown. This attack has to recharge before you can use it again. Very similar to Xenoblade Chronicles 3 there, except this is all in real time. I mean, Xenoblade Chronicles 3 is also in real time, but you can dodge attacks, and you couldn't quite do that in Xenoblade 3. But anyways, point is that you can dodge attacks have cooldown, it's all in real time, no more turn-based systems now, it's all just in real time, and pressing the moves you can press at the right times if they're readily available. It seems pretty safe to theorize that Chikorita, when fully evolved to Meganium is going to be able to Mega Evolve like the other starters, so they're all going to get new Mega Evolutions. But Meganiums is going to be a new type. It's going to be maybe Grass Fairy, and I say that because Chikorita has this move, Disarming Voice, a fairy attack, which Chikorita has not had before, but now all of a sudden, Chikorita has some new fairy moves. Would make sense if there's going to be a new fairy typing when its fully evolved form, Meganium, Mega Evolves. And so, looks like we got our battle here. Again, this is a big thing for me. I want to see more battles. I don't want it to just be like a handful. I want them to be a whole bunch like most Pokemon games. Totodile doing another dodge from that rollout attack. We can see him using Water Gun. This is established stuff already. We can see the full Pokemon party here. That makes sense. I am very curious how Stealth Rock will work in this game because they hazard you set. I don't know if... So, me looking here, actually. So, the Talonflame has only a little bit of health left. Hippowdon uses Stealth Rock first. Then Talonflame uses the Flame Wheel. And Talonflame is the one that takes the damage. So it looks like the Stealth Rock definitely is different than the typical mainline games. It's almost like a barrier there. And actually, yeah, that's what it is. That's cool. So Talonflame was taken out by that. Here, Pavilion, a bug type, skillfully avoids the Flamethrower, which would have absolutely done some serious damage. We can switch it out during the attack, bring out Onyx, who can better handle a Flamethrower attack. And actually, this Pyroar does a Flamethrower attack immediately, so the cooldown there was very short. I wonder if that's because the Flamethrower missed, so if you miss, maybe you don't have as much cooldown. That might be a little bit of a balancing feature there. And Onyx can take that, right? Actually, yeah, I mean, it's not very effective. Barely touches him, and then this character takes out Pyro with a Rock Slide. Okay, like that. There you go, that makes sense. I'll notice the grass is swaying there. Just a nice little touch, nothing too crazy, though. We get a look at the Mega Evolutions again. And something pretty important here, actually. So notice here, Absol is Mega Evolved. We're in the Mega Evolved battle. Stone Edge has some sort of extra thing there, so it looks like when you're Mega Evolved, all your attacks are powered up. But beyond that, you'll notice there's a meter here. And so as the battle is going on, this meter is diminishing. And there's different cells, so I wonder if you can expand on this later into the game where your Mega Evolution can last more. There's 4 different ones, so maybe you start off with just 1. Like, this could be pretty late game. I mean, looking at the levels, it is pretty late game, right? Like, they're all around 50, so you may start off with just 1 sort of cell for Mega Evolution, and then as you progress, you get 4 or 5. It seems to be room for 5, so you can expand on that, possibly, but it is limited per battle. Hey, look, a Pokemon actually eating food. At least someone's feeding the Pokemon here. Maybe that's the whole focus here. You gotta feed the Pokemon, and that's the harmony we're progressing towards. See a little bit of a reflection there. It's kind of a little bit blurrier, but it's nice to see this reflection. That looks pretty nice, actually. And that's pretty much it from the footage they showed. We see a Zygarde cell here, so we're gonna go probably run around collecting them in weird places, very similar to how we would collect the Wisps in and the Unknown as well in Legends Arceus. So that's gonna be fun to sort of just explore around finding little things. The Korok seed equivalent for this game, probably. And they also have this scene here where they say this is a promotion match announcement. So some sort of match is being announced, and I assume it has to do with the tower in the middle. Some people are theorizing this might have to do with multiplayer in the game. I don't think this is enough evidence to say there's multiplayer. Now, I hope there is. It would be awesome to see how multiplayer would work with this battle mechanic, so I really hope that we do see multiplayer in this game. But to me, this could just be a story thing, given that it is kind of like, you know, a CGI trailer. Although, because it's CGI, this is probably not actually a cutscene in a game, right? Like, I don't think they're going to show footage like this in the game. So it might just be for purely promotional materials, which Pokemon Company does put a lot together for. And so they're hinting at something. Maybe it is multiplayer, right? Like, it's hard to say, but there's clearly some sort of hint towards a battling system. Could just be a battle tower, which that's awesome. If there's a battle tower, you know, the idea to be able to battle a whole bunch of trainers, that's what I want to see. So maybe that's how they kind of make up for perhaps not as much wild area Pokemon to battle, but more so it's focused on trainer battles. Now, you need to be able to collect and find all your Pokemon in the game, right? You do start off with just a starter, so you're going to have to build a party in some way. So there's got to be at least enough out there for us to find a pretty significant variety of Pokemon. Of course, there's also the possibility they can transfer a Pokemon from Pokemon Home, but still that initial campaign should have a decent amount of Pokemon available. I will also take this moment to point out the website. Now, there isn't too much crazy things shown on the website that is like new. We just get more screenshots. Some of the screenshots look pretty good. Like, I actually like how this one over here looks. That looks nice. It almost looks like a painting, kind of, which is neat. We do see the map here, which is also interesting. I am noticing the map has different colors, so you have a blue section, a red section, a pink section, a I guess yellow, and then green. And I wonder, can we get a hint towards the wild areas by looking at the Pokemon symbols here? And that part is hard to say with any certainty at this point. What I will acknowledge, though, is that we can at least see where the Quasartico building is in relation to the tower in the middle of Lumio City. There's also this big building off into the distance in the back. There's also a big building over here and a big building over here. Perhaps this is where you start the game. Maybe this is where the train station comes into. That's possible. But that's all I pretty much take away from this map as of now. Maybe we'll notice things in the future, but that's all I've noticed. And so just continue to scroll through the website. We see a little bit more of these screenshots here. We've pretty much covered all this stuff, but just a little bit more of a look at this game. It is nice to see that they are already detailing the Pokemon a little bit. We have multiple descriptions for them. So it looks like we're kind of entering that typical sort of marketing campaign for big Pokemon games. And in the past, when we get a big new generation Pokemon game announced, it's announced at the beginning of the year, and they sort of advertise it with continual updates throughout the year leading towards the late end of the year. So they may just be following a very similar format here, unlike how they handled Legends Arceus. And yeah, that's it. That's all I have to take away from this one. Mega Gyarados looks pretty cool, though. I will point him out here. Looks cool. Glad he's there. Giant shrimp. I'm allergic to shrimp, sadly. But yeah, looks awesome. And that's it. That is my initial analysis for this first gameplay trailer and a brief look at the website. What do you make of Pokemon Legends ZA so far, though? Let me know in the comments below. This is AndresRestart. Thank you so much for listening and watching, and I'll see you all really soon. Take care. Bye.